If you're a student, then the chances are that you're finding it really difficult to make time for everything that you want to do. From keeping up with your work, doing chores, making time to spend with your friends and family, it can leave you feeling really overwhelmed. And trust me, I know, I used to feel exactly this same way until I learned how to better manage my time as a student with these 6 key, pretty easy principles that I'm going to lay out today. And the results speak for themselves really. Not only have I managed to balance being like a full-time student, I've also managed to secure a job for the summer. I've managed to make time to exercise and to spend time with my friends and family, but also time for like hobbies and side projects like this little YouTube channel. At the same time, I've managed to consistently get good grades at university. So I think that if you're a student and you're in college or university or maybe even high school, then these 6 steps are going to be super specific to you and they're really going to help you. So I promise that if you follow them in order, then you're going to have way more time and energy to actually build a life that you love. So the first step that we need to do before we do anything else is we need to audit our time and basically take note and realize how we're spending each hour in a day. So what I want you to do is take out a pen and paper and just make a list of every kind of essential thing that you have to do in a week and how many hours a day that takes you. So this might look something like sleeping, let's say 8 hours a day, cooking, let's say, I don't know, an hour a day, exercising an hour a day, and then maybe you have schoolwork from Monday to Friday, 8 hours a day. Total this up, and then however many hours you get, subtract this from 168, which is like the total amount of hours that we get in a week. And then with this total, we have an accurate idea of how many hours we have for like free time and that we can play around with. So I think the best way of looking at how we spend the hours in our free time is picking a week, and then at the end of each day in that week, you write down how many hours you spend on things like watching TV. So maybe that's an hour and a half a night, or things like commuting to and from school. Let's say that's 30 minutes, maybe each way. Things like scrolling your phone. And then you also want to make a note of this. So with this first step, we have an accurate idea of how we spend our time. But what I want you to do is keep this list safe because we're going to come back to it when we come to step 3. And the second step is something that I'm calling the North Star goal. And I think this is probably the most important step of the 6 because it essentially colors and influences every other thing in this method. So look, North Stars mean kind of different things for different people. But for me, it's a goal that you can achieve within about 3 years that's going to keep you happy and sustained in that for the next 10 years. And this basically just works on the principle that I think whatever makes you happy at kind of 19, 20, 21 is likely to keep you happy and be similar things that make you happy in your mid-20s and really even up to like the time you're 30. And look, whilst obviously what makes you happy will change as you get older, I think if you're a student, this is a really good way of looking at things because essentially those 2 or 3 years are giving you enough time to work on something so that by the time you graduate, you're not feeling lost and you have an idea of like where your life is going, at least for the next like 5, 6, maybe 10 years. So for me, my North Star goal is that in like 2.5 years when I graduate, I want to be able to work remotely from my laptop so that I can go to Southeast Asia and essentially just be a digital nomad there for the next few years. And this is why having a North Star goal is so important because it gives you an idea of where your life is actually heading. And it's that kind of feeling of progress that keeps us kind of sustained. But you need a really compelling reason to work towards your North Star. So for me, I know that like going to Thailand and Southeast Asia is something that's going to make me happy because I mean, I love the weather, I love the heat, I love the food, I like the fact it's a little bit of a cheaper cost of living, and all of these things kind of just contribute to my sustained feeling of happiness. And I know that it's made me happy at like 20 and 21 years old, and it's highly likely that these kind of things are going to continue to make me happy when I'm 24, 25, probably even like 30. So with that free time that we found I have in step 1, at least for me, that means that I'm devoting a lot of my energy and efforts towards trying to make this North Star a reality. So that's things like starting this YouTube channel. I'm also looking at some investments and just other ways, like other side hustles that I can use going forward to make a little bit of money from my laptop. About 1.5 years ago, I had no idea what my North Star was. I had no idea what I was working towards. And I kind of just felt like I was floating about without a purpose. And I feel like so many students feel this exact same way. But the big danger with this, and the big danger if we don't have a North Star, is that we kind of just float about and actually end up in a life that doesn't make us happy and doesn't feel fulfilling. But there is a really easy solution to help you find your North Star. And I think that if you take a pen and paper, you go outside, you go somewhere quiet, I just want you guys to make a list of 5 things that make you happy. And then once we have those 5 things, we're going to look at seeing how they can be made a reality. So for example, if what makes you happy is being able to go to the gym in the middle of the day when it's a little less quiet, or let's say doing your work from a coffee shop, well then probably you're the type of person that is going to be looking at a career away from that typical kind of 9-to-5 office job. So you're going to want to devote lots of your free time into making that kind of North Star a reality. So after we've completed this step, we're moving on to step number 3, which basically is ranking all of the activities that we're currently doing. And that's because after identifying your North Star, you now have an easy job of identifying what activities and what things you do in your free time that contribute to that goal. So if you remember from earlier, I want you to grab your list from the first step. And then what we're going to do next to the list of everything that we're currently doing is we're going to put a tick mark next to the things that help us contribute towards that North Star, and a little cross next to the things that aren't actually helping us move towards that goal. And the point is, we want to try and limit the stuff that isn't really helping us towards moving in that direction of the North Star, and obviously maximize all of our, as much energy and effort as we can towards the things that are positively contributing towards that goal. So for me, you can see how YouTube and those side hustles and kind of side quests actually factor into my life, because at the moment I know that they're really important to getting me to this kind of vision in 3 years' time. But the biggest tip I can give you guys here is to only really focus on 1 or 2 goals. Because if you try and do more than you're capable of, it's just going to get overwhelming and you're not actually going to be able to focus on kind of having one clear vision. So now we know what we should be doing and how we should be spending our time. This next step is going to tell you how you can actually implement all of these tasks so that you're working towards your goal. And the structure of my day is probably the thing that's had the greatest return on my productivity and kind of, just how much energy I have in a day. And it sounds a little bit strange, but bear with me. What we want to do is we want to completely fill our calendar. Essentially, so there's no blank spaces from time 1 to time 2. This is kind of a mix of a few different productivity tips I've come across, but essentially what we want to be doing is planning out our kind of ideal week and structuring our days in a way that, would kind of contribute to our perfect idea of what we want to be doing. And the thing is, if you fill your calendar so that there's no empty space, I think all of a sudden your free time becomes a lot more conscious. And look, don't get me wrong, there's still lots and lots of room for spontaneity, and I'm not following my calendar to the minute all the time. It just gives me a rough idea of how I want to be spending my time. And it gives me a constant reminder of where my energy ideally should be going into. And another thing that you can do that you can probably see from my calendar as well is this idea of color coding. I think that there's 4 different pillars to a student's life. You have health, relationships with your family and friends, you have studying, and maybe that's kind of mixed in with working as well. And then you've also got this North Star goal that we're working towards. So if you color code each of these pillars and give each of the 4 a different color, you want to be looking for a really nice balance across your kind of week in your calendar. And having this visual representation of how we are actually spending our time is really, really useful, because it just gives us an overriding sense of balance. And at least for me, it's kind of reassuring in knowing that I'm constantly progressing towards something. So it just gives my life a little bit more meaning. But the 5th step to this method involves combating fatigue, because how you structure your week actually matters so much as well. We want to be sure that we're maximizing the high points and the peaks in our energy and using this kind of opportunity to get the most things done. So I want you to make a list of all of those tasks that you had in step 3 and 4, and then rank them in terms of priority. Obviously, as students as well, our kind of day-to-day might change. It might change depending on lectures or other things you've got going on. So those priorities might change over time. But just as a general kind of overview, I think this is a really important thing to do. And it's important because we can begin to put the highest priority things, the things that we really, really want to do, in places on our calendar where we know we've got the most energy. And when might this be? Well, I think for most students, we have the most energy either first thing in the morning or really, really late at night. But this is going to vary from person to person. So just kind of, again, take a week, take a few days to notice when you have those spikes in energy and when it kind of dips a little bit. So for me, I know that I have the most amount of energy first thing in the morning. So I make sure that I put the most crucial, most important tasks that I want to get done first thing. And this means that it's kind of a downward ride from that point. And whilst my energy levels might go down, I know that I've kind of got rid of the hardest task that I needed to do. Right, and now step 6 is going to hopefully show how we can find balance in our life. And as students, which is kind of a big thing, we want to be avoiding burnout. So whilst it's super important to have an overarching goal that you're working towards, you also want to make sure that you're living in the moment. I think, especially as a student, oftentimes it can feel like you have to do everything for yourself. You know, the cooking, the cleaning, the washing up, the work, like the list is endless. And because of this, sometimes it just feels like the only thing we want to do is just lay on our bed, scroll through our phone, or I don't know, just watch TV. I'm not saying this is bad by any means. I think we all need moments of kind of mindful rest. But I think there's one big mindset shift that we can adopt that kind of makes sure that we're not going to be getting burnt out. So I think the best way to counter burnout is just to change the way that you view weekends. And that is, we don't want to view weekends in this conventional way as being really distinct to weekdays. So if you want to go out with your mates, or I don't know, go eat at a nice restaurant, I'm saying if it's like reasonable, just do it in the week. Don't wait until the weekend. Don't put things off. Obviously, I think it's all about moderation, but if we begin to look at each day as the same, then I think this just encourages us to live more in the moment and kind of counter that long-term kind of North Star goal with some more present kind of activities. But hopefully you can implement this method into your daily life and begin to take back some control over your life and your own happiness. But if you find that you're spending way too much time on your schoolwork, you might find one of these videos interesting, where I give you some tips on how you can use AI to save loads of time at university. And not only that, but you can make studying way faster, easier, and more efficient. So I will see you all there.